I am Michael T. Smith, and this is the Church of, and here is your message for the week of July 14, 2024. We looked last week at the book of Acts 26, and we won't go there. You can get the previous week's message, where Paul is recounting his encounter with Jesus and on the road to Damascus, and he says, I saw a bright light, and I heard a voice speaking unto me, I'm Jesus whom you persecute, and stand upon your feet. And he says, I've appeared to thee for this purpose. I'm going to make you a minister and a witness. And he says, I'm going to make you a minister, and I'm going to have you testify of two things. Of what? The first thing, in the King James, it says, of these things. These things what? These things that are happening to you now. I'm going to let you testify to these things that you're seeing, that you're this radical Second Temple Israel Pharisee zealot who believes that blood should be shed for the protection of the nation, right? This is how we meet Paul. And he says, but now you're seeing that the very thing you thought you were protecting the nation from is in fact what not only is for the nation, but for the whole world. And he says, I want you to testify of these things. And then he says, and I want you to testify of those things that I have yet to show you. And we have been talking about that, the power of that idea in this series on cults and cultism. And I gave you a statement, and I'm going to give it to you again. And I know it's wordy, I know it's clunky, I know it's chunky. So I've got now, they're going to flow it into the comments here in the feed. So if you want to copy and paste as it goes, I'm going to go through it really quickly, and I hope it I hope it'll paint a bigger picture. So hear what I'm saying to you today. Hear what I'm saying to you. I have prayed, and I pray that your ears are open and anointed, and your heart is open. Hear this, because this may be the most important thing I've ever said, certainly in the 11 weeks that we've been together as a church. Here we go. The first step coming into your notes, into your feed, the first step into the possibility of theological or religious fullness. The step one, page one, do not pass go, do not collect $200. I mean, right, the very first step, right, in your home base on your sorry board. That's not home base. Where do you start out in sorry? You're trying to make it home. What do you start out in? I don't know. I guess you start. Thinking my kids are like, hello. So the first step into the possibility of theological fullness. What do you mean by theological fullness? I mean truth. I mean truth that is large and truth that is enlarging. Truth that is large and truth that is enlarging. The first step into truth, the first step to truth that is large, the first step to truth that is enlarging. The first step into the possibility. You say, I want to understand God. I want to know what God is like. I shared a thing, I think it was from Oswald Chambers. God, I want to know you, not as I think you are, but God, I want to know you as you know yourself to be. The first step into that possibility, into that fullness, that truth, large and enlarging, coming into your notes, now the second part, is the willfully willing. I'm willfully willing. Meaning even if I don't desire it, I desire the desire for it. That's a powerful thing. I desire the desire. God, I don't, it's not what I want, but I want to want it. The first step is the willfully willing and intentionally decisive. You know you're making an active decision to do this. The willfully willing and intentionally decisive effort. And underneath that, and it's coming into your feed. It's a conscious effort. It's a concerted effort. What do you mean by concerted? I mean all of my faculties are willfully willing and intentionally deciding to do something. What? Let's go on a little bit further. The first step into this fullness is the willfully willing and intentionally decisive effort to what? Here it is in your notes. To relinquish. Let it go. Let it go. This is Ilsa? Who is it? Elsa. Elsa. So, man, my younger member's just like, did you just click? You're out of there. You called her Ilsa. To relinquish. Relinquish what? Let go any and all stakes. Any line you've drawn in the sand. Let go any and all claims. Let go any and all assertions. Let go any and all assumptions. The first step, if you're going to step into truth, if you're going to step into truth that is large and enlarging, if you're going to step into the fullness of religious, or the possibility of religious fullness, you've got to be willfully willing and intentionally decisive in your effort to what? I let go of any stake that I have that there can be private ownership of God. I let go of any claim that there can be private ownership of God. I let go of any assertion that there can be private ownership of God. I let go of every assumption that there can be privatized ownership of God. You cannot even step one into truth. You cannot even step one into the fullness of truth enlarging, the fullness of religious possibility. You can't even put your toes in the water. I can't put my toes in the water until I first, with willing willfulness and intentional decisiveness, that I make a conscious effort to say, God, I have been taught that my people, my book, my religion, my church has something no one else has, that I have something that gives me access to you that nobody else can get until they have what I have in order to get that same access to you. You've got to relinquish. I let that go, God. I let go the idea that the Bible or that Christianity or that Islam or that Hinduism, Buddhism, where I let go, even atheism, right? I let go. The step into truth that is large and enlarging, you've got to relinquish the idea and the stake and the claim and the assertion that we've got and other people don't. That I have, it's like what the big kids, the big cousins did to the little cousins, they'd have their hands up and they'd be like, what are you looking at? Nothing. What are you looking at? Nothing. Can I see? No, you can't see. And that's what we do with God. What do you got? Well, nothing. Can I see it? Well, are you going to join the club? Well, no, I just want to see what you have in here. You can't see what I have in my hand unless you fill out here, initial here, sign here, and we get the rest of the paperwork out to you next week. You can't even get to that place. And I'm saying there is a truth that is large. There is a truth that is enlarging. There's a view that's big and getting bigger. Right? But you can't get there unless you first let go, right? Homer Simpson, he's trying to get stuff out of the snack machine. He's got his elbow all the way up in there. And I love it. It's one of the very first Simpsons episodes. Mikey, we can't even tell you what season, what show, what episode, what minute it was, what commercial break it was. So could my nephews, right? He's stuck in there and he says, I need help, but don't make a big deal out of it. And next thing you know, it's fire engines and helicopters and jaws of life, whatever. And they're going to cut Homer Simpson out of the soda machine. He's trying to get the soda out. And they finally do this x-ray thing and they say, Mr. Simpson, have you let go of the soda? And he kind of turns into a monkey and raises his hand and pulls it out. He was trying to hold on to the soda and get his hand out. And I'm telling you, we're trying to hold on to this privatized idea that we have something that the Muslims don't, that the Jews don't, that the Hindus don't, that the Buddhists don't, that the Sikhs don't, that the Mormons don't. We have some, and if you just come over to our way, you're going to get there. We can't even begin to see truth. We can't even begin to step into the fullness of what's possible or the possible of what's full. We can't get there unless we let go of the soda. Why? Because the big truth, right? In your notes, the big truth cannot be owned. You can't stake your claim and say, we have the big truth. Our church has the big truth. As a matter of fact, this is cults and cultism. Anybody that puts their flag down and says, we got the truth and nobody else does, that's sign number one of cults and cultism. The big truth cannot be owned. The big truth cannot be made subordinate. Well, we've got Christian truths and Hebrew scriptures and Buddhist traditions, and we've got the Vedas, and we've got the... Wait, listen to me. The second you put your stake down, you're suggesting that the large truth is underneath your claim, and the large truth is not underneath our claim. The large truth is larger than our claim. The big truth cannot be owned or made subordinate, but the big truth can be accessed through the subordinate or subsidiary articulations. Look here on the screen. The big truth, well, maybe. The big truth, what is the big truth? God, love, peace be unto Jay-Z, right? They said, what do you believe in? Do you believe in Christ? I believe in God religion, right? The big truth, God religion, love religion, it's not subordinate to any Smart. But you know what? Through these articulations, right? You can have a Christian articulation, a Muslim, Islamic articulation. You can have a Buddhist, right? You can have Buddhist. You can have, is it BHU or BU? DDHA. Doesn't matter. The genes. Somebody look at my genes. The Buddha. Whatever. You can access the big truth through these subsidiary articulations, but none of these can own the big truth. Somebody said that makes me nervous, and that's what makes it a cult. You're not going to see God. You're not going to see the fullness of God. You're not even going to take the first step into the possibility of theological fullness. You can't even glimpse. You can't even get your eyes up high enough to look into and see over the edge of, wow, that's large. That's bigger than I thought. Man, that's a view. I thought I had a view. Man, that's a view. You can't even step one into until you accept what? That the big truth is not under what I know. The big truth is larger than what I know. The big truth cannot be owned or made subordinate in your notes, but it can be accessed through subsidiary articulations. You can get there through the smaller truth. But here we go. But we perpetuate, last part of your notes, but we perpetuate our own blindness. We perpetuate our own blindness as long as we continue to assume, or when we suppose, we have the only way to God. And this is the problem. If you want to boil it down to the bottom line of the bottom line, the lowest common denominator, reduce. You boil it down to right here. That we perpetuate our own blindness. We perpetuate, listen, not just theological blindness, relational blindness. Blindness to our humanity and to the humanity of others. Blindness to God. We perpetuate our own blindness as long as we suppose that somehow I have accessed the key. I've accessed, I have what nobody else has. Well, Pastor Mike, I hear you say that, and this is interesting because when I was teaching Nothing Else Matters, I got accused very often. Well, this is a cult. I mean, who are you to say, oh, so we shouldn't listen to the Bible now? We're just supposed to listen to whatever God's telling you. We got the Bible right here that we can all see and agree on, like the Bible just popped out of space somewhere. People wrote it down. People argued over it. They argued over the translations, which one to use. They all in favor of using the Book of Thomas say aye. All in favor of dropping the Book of Thomas say no. All in favor of using, the Levitical version of the 5 books, and they went through it and they curated it based on the Holy Spirit was working through those guys, through those guys. No women at the table, right? I mean, and for a long time the Holy Spirit worked in them one way, and then another time the Holy Spirit worked in them a different way. Well, this is of God. That's totally of the devil, right? And so we're just supposed to believe, Pastor Mike, that somehow you left pastoring and God took you and started talking to you and showed you what nobody else knows. Au contraire, mon frère. We're in a Simpsons theme today. Au contraire, mon frère. I am not at all suggesting that I've got an answer or an insight into what nobody else knows. I am suggesting that I am now sharing what everybody else knows. Message 1 of the very big journey that I took was this: what you've always known, but you may have never heard. What you may have never heard, but you've always known. I am not speaking now of privatized things. I got a note from a dear member this past week, and 100 notes, right, from a dear member every other week for 15 years. You're wrong on this, you're wrong on that, you're wrong on this, you're wrong on that. And I just love, and I said, well, I love you. You love me. We're a happy family. Now we're on Barney. I don't know what's going on, but I just don't understand why you're saying this while you're saying it's big and it's open when there's all these other smart people saying it's closed. What are you talking about? That should be your sign there. When anybody, big or small, is saying, I've got the little birdie. I've got the birdie that nobody else got. This is the way to get to God. I can't see it. Well, you got to come inside. Okay, I'm inside. What? I got the way to God. I can't see it. Well, you got to come down to the altar. Okay, can I see it? Well, no, you got to get up to the prayer room. Well, I need the way to God. Well, you got to listen to my thing. Here's 5 things you need to know. Well, do I got? Well, no. Now you got to pray. Okay, I did the prayer. Now, well, now you got to come to church. Well, now you got to be discipled in the Word. And so you're telling me that the whole world, the outcome of the whole world, depends on getting a glimpse of what you have there. Well, we put it out there for people. It's not like we're hiding it. We're just telling you God gave it to us and not to you, and we're taking it out to you now. And if you will listen to us, then you'll have the truth. But if you don't listen to us, it's your own dumb fault that God didn't give it to you in the first place, and that God gave it to us. Well, he didn't really give it to us. He gave it to other people, and then cursed those people because they refused to accept it. But then he gave it to people who wanted it because the first people refused to accept it, because he kind of flipped up on them and said, go this way. I just play and go that way. But now we have the private truth, and we take it out, and we'd be happy to share it with you. And if you want to go along with it, great. And if you don't, we'd be happy to point a gun at you and make sure you go along with it. Or we'd be happy to deprive you of food, or we'll be happy to beat you, or we'll be happy to do something to you. Why? Well, it's better that we beat you now before God beat you. Well, how can we not know this? How come you guys know this and nobody else does? Look, God gave it to us personal. God told it to us personal. He didn't really tell it to us. He told it to a guy in the woods, and he told it to a guy on a rooftop, and he told it to another guy, and those guys told 2 people, and they told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends. And now, how are you doing now? Well, we got about 10 out of every 100 got it, and about 90 of them are just going to bust hell wide open. Why? Because somebody was telling them a lie. They said God told them something else, but that God didn't tell them the private thing. God told us the private thing, so their private thing is wrong. Our private thing is right. I mean, you can't get free from Satan. You can't get free from darkness until you start step 1 and go, that is a ridiculous idea. Where is the political blindness? Where is the relational blindness? Where is the blindness with sexual violence? Where is the blindness in homes? Where is the blindness against children? Where is the blindness of racism and all? Where is the blindness? The blindness is in this idea that there's something part of God that can be owned and copyrighted, bought, sold, and processed. And this is the wall you're hitting. This is the wall you're hitting. This is what's stopping you. What? That every time you come here to TCO, you assume I'm giving you an addition to the private truth. We have the private truth about the private plan of God for the private deliverance of souls, and Pastor Mike is here adding on to some parts of that private truth, and I am not doing that. I am letting go. I am letting go of all claim to the private truth, and I am now speaking on that which is universally known, understood, and possessed, buried by the darkness of cult and cultism and tribes and tribalism and the chaos of this world throughout the generations, and now speaking to the deepest buried treasure in the large selves of all people, that you don't have to take God to people unless you first believe the lie that God has taken from people. And I'm not at all speaking of, well, you just got a little private thing that God told you and we're supposed to listen to your private thing now. I'm going with the public thing. I'm not got a private thing at all. I'm telling you that the largeness of the truth of God is that God is already at work in all, among all, has always been at work, that the big truth is always working. And I'm hoping to climb the ladder of a subsidiary articulation and use the person of Christ, the iconography of Christ, the power of Christ, the spirit of Christ, the mythos of Christ, the legend of Christ, the largeness of Christ, to articulate and climb that ladder to show, get our first step toes into the big view of truth, large and enlarging. But I'm not saying, well, you got to climb the ladder of Christ. Any other ladders won't work. I'm saying that no truth can be truth if it's not every other ladder that can take you there, that you kind of step on this rung and skip over that rung. What rungs do you skip over? Everything that tries to make God small and private, you block it out of your mind and let it go. Every rung that points to God is large and everywhere, and that we're not individuals in or out, but we're individuals waking up to what God is doing in the whole of time. Now we're on our way to glimpsing that big truth that is large and enlarging. Are you out there? Did you go home? Do I have you? Okay? Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know if you're there or not. So, now, I want you to see this. Yeah, not that. Here's the big question. How? And it's on your thing here. Let me try this. How? And when I ask how, I mean by what means or mechanism. Right? How? By what means or mechanism? Let me try to I don't know if they'll be able to see that. Well, you get as close as you can. How, by what means can an individual right escape what? The eternal wrath, justice, and punishment of God on their immortal soul. That's the question. I kind of got my head in the way. That's all right. Let's see if I can do this. If you want to screen capture it. So I can't read your writing anyway. Well, that's all right. How, by what means, by what mechanism can an individual escape the eternal wrath, justice, and punishment of God upon their immortal soul? I mean, I think we would agree that is the question. And Christianity posits 5 ideas for that. Idea 1 is Christ plus nothing. What is that? We call that the doctrine of inclusion, or a universalism, that Adam messed everything up without anybody's free will involved, and that Christ, the last Adam, fixed everything without anyone's will involved. Number 2, right? It is Christ plus faith. Christ plus faith. Well, Christ did fix everything, but it's only if you choose to opt in by believing it. That's answer number 2 to the big questions, or the big question. Number 3 is Christ plus, catch this, it's an energism. No. Sorry, let me fix this here. I'll just do it this way. A monergism, which is a fancy way for saying the work of God within. That it's not just enough that Christ paid the price. It's not just enough to believe that God paid the price. You've got to believe that God paid the price, and by a work of God within, mono, one, just God's work, right? There is an evidence that you'll bring forth the fruit of God. You'll bring forth the fruit of good works, but it won't be by any of your power. The fruit of those good works will be God's energy, monergism, right? Working in you and showing evidence that you're changed, which is what? If a person says, I believe, but you don't see the evidence of that monergism inside, the work of God, then they are, they're not in. Number 4, Christ plus, these terms are used a lot of times interchangeably. So, energism. And this is the idea of works in cooperation. Cooperation. T-I-O-N. I know I'm trying to make this thing as small. Have I made it as small as it can go? Yeah. Christ plus energism, which is what? That it's me and God together. Answer number 3 says God is doing it entirely in you and substantiating your faith by showing the blossoming of the flower. But number 4 says, well, God is working in you, but you're working in cooperation. God is energizing you. The monergism is this idea of it's solely God, right? Working. Or energism is that it's God energizing and empowering you to bring forth the fruit. And of course, 5 is Christ plus your works. Christ plus your works. Okay, you have believed? Yes. Now you complete the salvation transaction by bringing fruit to the table. So we get scriptures. What? They confess me, but deny me with what? Their works. That they confess me. They believe Jesus paid the price, and they say, yeah, I believe that. I profess faith in that, but they never bring forth the corresponding action. They never bring forth the fruit, the fruit, the works of faith, right? And so because they don't bring forth the faith without works is dead. So you say, I believe, yeah, but you're not doing the things, right? And I get, let me do this. This is wrong. This is wrong. Energism, synergism, monergism. Okay, try that again. Number 3 is the energism, God working. Number 4 is the synergism, God and you working. Number 5 is the monergism, just you working. That's the mono. Thank you. I wasn't planning on going this way. So Christ plus nothing. Jesus paid it all. You didn't have to believe in Adam. Adam sinned. We all got messed up. Christ obeyed. We all got fixed. That's answer 1. No, answer 2. That's true. We didn't do anything to get in Adam. We just got messed up because of Adam. Christ fixed it all, but you got to believe. That's number 2. Number 3, you got to believe, but there better be some evidence that God is working in you, energizing you for the Christian life. Number 4, it's not God doing it. It's you and God in cooperation, synergism. And number 5, no, it's monergism. Don't look at God to help you bring forth fruit. Don't look at God to make you bring forth works. If you're serious about what you believe, you'll start acting right. These are the 5 answers. And forgive me for jumping around. As I said, I wasn't expecting to go this way. These are the 5 answers. Now, here's what's amazing about the 5 answers. Down here, you have very few people who are in. There's a very small few, a very small us. When you get down here to this monergism that you got to do it. But as you work up the way, right, guess what? As you work up, it's not you have to bring forth the works. If you say, well, it's God and you, then guess what? More people are in. Well, it's not God and you synergizing. It's just God doing it. More people are in. Well, it's not works at all. You got to do is believe. More people are in. Well, you don't even have to believe. God did it all. More people are in. This is the process. So the answer to the question, how, by what means, by what mechanism does an individual, get their soul escape the eternal wrath, justice, and punishment of God upon their immortal soul? The answer to that question is one of these 5 things. It's either that Christ did it all, or that Christ plus faith, or that Christ plus faith by the energistic works, Christ plus faith by the synergistic works, Christ plus faith by the monergistic works. And if it comes to monergistic works, then we look at the world and we say, well, only about, out of the 7.5 billion people, only about 5.5 billion have come to faith. Only have 2 billion have come to faith, which means 5.5 billion are damned. So if it's not number 1 on your page here, then that's automatically 5.5 billion people out. But you say, well, there are 2 billion that have confessed. Yeah, but and if you say, okay, well, I go with number 2, then that means 2 billion are in. But if you're going to go to works, how many of those 2 billion are showing the fruit of God? Well, 2 billion drops a little. Well, how many of those 2 billion are showing evidence of their works in God? It drops a little. How many of those 2 billion are bringing forth works which complete the salvation of Christ? It gets very little. So the farther you get into the privatized idea, the more as the complexity, watch this, as the complexity of the answer. As the complexity goes of the answer goes up, the population with access goes down. The more complex the answer. What is the question? The question is, by what mechanism do I get my soul out of hell? If you have a very complex answer, well, Christ had to pay the price, check. You've got to believe that, check. And now we're going to check in with you constantly to make sure your works measure up to that. The more complex that answer as it rises, the population included falls. But guess what else? What else? That as the complexity of the answer rises, the population falls. But guess what else happens? As the complexity of the answer rises, here's what else happens. As the complexity rises, the justness of the answer falls. The more complex it is, the less just it is. That's huge. I mean, you could just look at the list here. Just look at the list. You've got I've got so many colors going here. You've got Christ plus nothing. Well, that's kind of as good as we can imagine it, right? That doesn't seem like Adam messed it up. Nobody did anything. Christ fixed it. Well, that's pretty massive, right? That, wow. I mean, if that were true, and remember, the way you know you've encountered Christ is you hope that's true. If you've been touched by God, there's only one response to what I'm saying. Man, Pastor Mike, I hope number one is right. My God, I hope when we get there, we find out. Why? Why? Because you know you're not just hoping that's true for your neighbor or your brother or your friend. You hope that's true for you. Here's what we hope. We hope to God it's not this one down here. That our salvation is not complete unless our works line up with that, because God's going to say, I spit you out of my mouth, you lukewarm blankety blank. Man, we hope that's not true. I'm living like that's true, but God, I hope that I get there and find out who it was actually number one, or who was actually number two. Man, who maybe number three, number four, and number five are scary. Why? Because as the complexity of the answer rises, the justness of it falls. And as the justness of it falls, the population with access to that escape also falls. Are you catching what I'm saying? Now, I don't even know where to start with all my stuff on my paper. Let me get some other colors here. And I thank you for your grace and your patience and just listening to me. We're going to try some yellow. I feel like I'm Bob Ross. Maybe I have some yellow in our example today. I guess we do have yellow, orange. I don't know, whatever it is. To move a Christian out of this idea down here and get them to inch up even one, if you ever get a Christian to just believe that all you got to do is believe and you're in, that is such a major revelation, major revolution. People struggle with that. It's got to take more than just believe it. It's got to take more than you can't just believe it. Don't be coming down here with your cross saying you believe. You say, I believe. You said a prayer, but you never. I mean, we have heard that all our Christian. Oh, you said a prayer and you left it at the altar. God knew you didn't mean business, because if you meant business, you wouldn't be. I mean, if you try to tell people, well, I believe that it's just the second one, that all you got to do is believe. You're so deep into rejected heresy. And here's the special thing about this, that all of these 5 answers. Here, the smartest people in the world, theologians in the world, can't agree on which one is rich. They argue are in books as thick as big as thick as my forearm. They argue about which one's right. Each one suggesting the answer is smaller than what Fred said, and somebody else saying, no, Bill's a doggone liar. The answer is bigger than that. I mean, and go round and round, which is what? It's so complex that even the smartest people, think of this, using the same Old Testament, same New Testament, same Greek, same Hebrew, same Chaldean, same Aramaic, same Latin, same collection of scriptures, same collection of patristic works, same archaeological research, same historic, same Josephus, same they got all the same information and cannot agree on what? On the single doggone most important question of everything that there is. How does a person get out of eternal damnation, wrath, and punishment for their immortal soul? And they say, well, it's what do they say? It's complicated. And I'm telling you, if it's complicated, it's not just. Now, you want to talk about somebody being put out of church. Don't dare let someone come along and suggest the actual answer. Do I have a purple? I don't even know. I got purple, light blue. Let somebody suggest the actual answer is this, that you don't even have to believe. That's the devil, Bobby Boozy. Hey, don't you say that. The Bible says that whosoever believeth on him shall not. The Bible says that by faith it's heresy to suggest number two. It's quadruple antichrist. Skip you, draw four, blank you. Can't double stamp a double stampy. That God would ever be big enough to fix it, to fix a mess nobody chose to get into. He could fix it by nobody choosing to get out of. I mean, you're just the devil. Somebody say, Pastor, what's the point? You want to know why? Here it is. Even if somebody were to possibly make the leap to number one, right? That you don't even have to believe that God did it all. Even if somebody were to possibly be that magnanimous of soul, to imagine, okay, I can't be more selfish than God, right? What's my time? I got a couple minutes. I can't be more selfish than God, right? And if I could afford insulin for the whole world and just write a check to the whole world to have insulin, and I knew it could be free medicine for the whole world, I know it would be wrong of me to have something for the whole world and then to conditionalize that I have something that everybody needs to survive, or oxygen. I own all the oxygen, and then to give out the oxygen only to those with a secret plan to let everybody know where the oxygen is. And maybe they don't do too good a job at telling people that. And even if they tell you the plan, you gotta do some stuff to get the oxygen. I would not be that petty. Even if I'm able to rise to the magnanimous idea that God is somehow not more evil than I am or more small-minded than I am, and that number one is the truth. If I did that, what's sad about that is that it would be the most gracious thought that I can have. Pastor Mike, I'm with you. I don't believe it's number 5. I don't believe it's number 4. I don't believe it's number 3. I'll even say number 2 is awesome, but I'll even say that it's bigger than that. And you would think, I've done the biggest thing that there could ever be. But here's the big idea is this, that even if you got to number 1, and even if you said, you know what, I believe that it is Christ plus nothing, that you don't even have to have faith, that you would say that even if you got to that, guess what? You would still be woefully short of the big truth. Why? How? I took the largest answer that's the least complicated, that lets the most people in. How can I be woefully short of the big truth? I'll tell you how you could be, because the issue is not the answer. The issue is not which is the answer. The issue is the question is contrary to the nature of God. The question presupposes things about the nature of God, which we know to be true, which we know to be false according to the nature of Christ. What am I going to do to escape what happens to an individual when they die and God finally gets their hands on it? That when God finally gets the hands and gets ready to let that fire down, how can a person escape that? It's the question that is against the idea of God. And while we're fighting, and this one ain't right, and whoever tells you this is a lie, and this one right here, you better not, you're the devil, it's a cult, I'd get out of there in a second. We're fighting for 1,000 years over here, and this, my friends, this is the problem. Why? Because it starts with an idea of God that is kind of small, insulting, and ridiculous. It starts with an idea of, now God can't just let a wrong go. He's got to do this, and then we start saying stupid stuff. God doesn't want to bring the pain down, but he has to because of he was painting, and he started laying tile and didn't realize he hadn't measured the room out right, and now he's kind of got it, and he's sorry he's going to burn you in hell. And all the ridiculous things we do, twister, right hand yellow, left foot green, earlobe on orange, and all that kind of stuff that we do to try to make make sense of it, of the nonsensical. The problem is we obsess and we fight over providing an answer, a Christ-aligned answer to a contra Christ question. Because we start with a supposition that, well, when you die, there's hell to pay. When you start with that assumption, when you die, there's hell to pay, then you reverse engineer out of that without even realizing that the assertion that when you die that there's hell to pay is not step one, stage one of the nature of the cosmos. Love is step one, stage one of the nature of the cosmos. Love is, well, your idea of love is different than mine. My idea of love is not letting people who, abuse children, not letting people who rob places, or not letting people who, do with that awful thing that happened yesterday with the press. That's not my idea of love. My idea of love is gun them down and let God sort them out. My idea, well, of course that's our idea. Why? Because we're limited. We're human. We only know how to combat violence coming at us with more violence. But when Jesus was surrounded, when they came with their swords and their knives and their staves and all that kind of stuff, Jesus, the Bible says, breathed on them, and they all were neutralized on the ground. And he stood up and he said, now let me ask you again, who are you looking for? And they all of a sudden realized Jesus does not have to confront with violence. God's power is so great. Well, there's an awful person over here. It doesn't matter how awful the person you're talking about is. They are one view of God away from total transformation. They're one Saul of Tarsus, Damascus Road moment away from total transformation. All of us are one insight away from God. Total transformation. If God appeared to President Biden like Christ appeared on the road to Damascus, we'd have a different president in 7 minutes. If Christ appeared to President Trump like he did saw on the road, we'd have a different President Trump in a matter of 7 minutes. We're all one encounter with God away, one insight, one enlightenment away from total transformation. You are, I am. We are all one insight away from becoming a more Christ-aligned version of ourselves. But we start with the idea that once people see God, that God's immediate response is, here you have seen me, total transformation. Now you've got to be punished forever for what happened to you in your blindness. But not only that, that's not what true Christianity says. It doesn't say you're going to be punished for what you did wrong. True Christianity says you're going to be eternally punished from what somebody else did wrong. It's the answer that is Antichrist. I'm closing. Please, please, please. I got just my last statement. Please, 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 please hear and understand what I'm saying. This is where you're stuck. This is where you're stuck. This is where you're stuck. And man, talk about stuck. You can't even say that the question is dumb because you're afraid that if you say the question's dumb, you're going to get there and find out you're just hedging your bets. You know what? You're going to the roulette table, right? You're betting on red and black. I'm going to do on red and black and green. What are you talking about? I'm doing red, black, single zero, double zero. Why? I just got to protect everything. Well, just in case God is worse than anything I can ever imagine. My neighbors, faithful in temple, faithful in acts of righteousness, faithful in their family, faithful in this. I got neighbors who are Jews, and I got true Jews, and I got neighbors who are Jewish, and they are faithful. I've got Muslim friends, faithful. I've got Hindu friends, faithful. Faithful. And God says, it's not that you didn't believe in God, you just didn't believe in God the right way. Well, we're just going to see when we get there who had it right. We're going to see when we get there that partial-sighted people didn't see fully, and they're finally going to see fully, and God's going to go, aha, you were so close. You were so close. You were just too arrogant. You were too arrogant. You should have gone with Islam. You should have gone with Islam. I mean, Moses was first, then Jesus, but my latest update was Muhammad. The peace be unto the prophet was my latest update. You guys stayed on the old operating system. You are so dumb. I mean, a billion Muslims tried to tell you they had the truth, and you were just stuck in your Christianity and your Catholic Church, and you're so dumb. And we said, well, that God would never do that. We have the truth. What? We have the private truth. They said, no, we have the private. No, we have the private truth, and all such assertions are contrary to God. Please hear me. Please understand this is where you're stuck. As long as this question, what's going to happen to avoid punishment when I die, as long as that remains anywhere in our theological thinking, we cannot begin to approach the truth and largeness of who God is. Well, you're asking me to do the scariest thing in the world, to let go of the unknown for the sake of the unknown. Let me tell you something. Thank God that Christ is known. Thank God that God is revealed in the hearts of all. Now, in our small selves, we are punitive, we are petty, we are vindictive, we are cruel and angry, and we want to respond with violence and insult, and we want to lash out, and we want to feel when we feel it powerless. We want to see those who got it coming to get it coming. We are all that way in our small self. But guess who we are in our large self? God, guess who we are in our large self? This is what Jesus tried to get people to see. Guess who we are in our large self? We are also in our large self fully aware that if there were folks to get God, we are the first on the list to get God. Not me. They are the bad ones. You've not even made the first entrance into Christ. You can't even be an old school Christian without realizing they aren't the bad ones. I am. But here's the problem. If that's the nature of everyone, if all are blind and all are sick and all are sin deceived and all have partial sight and all have doctrinal error, then guess what? If God doesn't make the answer super simple because it's such a universal problem, then God is not just. And guess what else? God is not good. Well, no, don't you say that now. I know that if there's one thing I do know, it's God is good. Just stay right there. If we could just stay right there. And I'll take it one step further. Not only is God good, God's gooder than you are. Imagine the goodest goodness that you can ever imagine. The most mercifulness you can ever imagine. The most kindness and pitifulness and just, I'm just so self-just, just thank you for your mercy. Oh my God, you just don't even know just what you've done. Yeah, I know I'm off on that. Imagine how great God could be. Multiply it times infinity. What'd they say? And Joe Black, take it to the depths of forever. And you still don't have a clue. Imagine God's goodness and realize you've not even gotten close. If you can start there, you're ready to tip those toes into the waters of truth that is large and enlarging. But as long as we stay in the cult, we got the remedy, we got the cure. We own it. We own the cure. You got to come to our clinic to get it. You got to buy our books to get it. You got to hear one of our sales reps to get it. And we're doing a piss poor job of even getting it out. But it's a false proposition. We're trying to escape a problem that isn't the problem. We just got to start with what we know. Because here's the thing. You don't start with the spiritual truth and work down. You start with the natural truth and work up. Jesus said, okay, you're a parent. You know what a parent is. You know how you love your child, right? Start with the natural truth. And use that natural truth to build a ladder to the bigger idea of who God is. Okay, if it was your animal that was stuck and he was hurting and you heard Kenobi just wailing, and if you never heard a beagle wail, somebody showed me the other day, that's my beagle, he's not dying, that's just the way he sounds. I mean, that, it's traumatizing with that dog, what? A piece of popcorn was stuck under the couch, Dad, I was dying. That's Kenobi. Jesus says, well, you know how you would help your animal if his popcorn was stuck and it was killing him. Yeah, I do. That's a natural truth. Now think of what God would have you to do. He's always trying to work us from the natural to the spiritual. But we're in a deception because we think there's a spiritual answer about spiritual wrath and spiritual punishment that we got to come down here and figure out the solution to. It's a false idea up top. Only the sickest of the sick would hurt their children the way we say God is going to hurt humanity. We recognize that's a sick person doing that. Only us at our worst lets loose our wrath, our punishment, and our punitive. And as a matter of fact, most of our wrath and punitive damage to our children was based on the false idea of if I don't do it to them, God's going to do it to them. It's a lie so deep, so dark, so binding. No wonder we can't step into the first step of truth. Because we first got to relinquish the false idea of the problem. And as soon as you let go of the false idea of the problem, you're going to stop pretending only your group has the answer to it. And now we're on our way to Christ revealed, a truth large and enlarging. But we'll have to hit that next week. The church of is simple. If you're tuning in and you're getting the link week in, week out, we don't know you're there. But when you show value by create value by showing support, we know you're there. We've gone through our database, almost 500 people. We said, okay, well, a lot of the people say, hey, I really love you, and we never heard from you, so we just moved on. We're going to do that every month. Some of you are so sweet. Several times a week, you say, every time I listen to the message, I send something. Well, you don't have to do that, but thank you so much. That shows us you have value. Some of you are like, oh my gosh, I listen all week long and I give once a week. Somebody said, man, once a month you're going to hear. It doesn't matter. But every month we're going to say, why? If people aren't getting value out of what we're doing, we're not going to keep spamming your inbox to say, here's another thing that we're doing. Here's another thing that we're doing. Here's another thing that we're doing. Why? But not only that, you got to go out and live love. You got to go out and live love. You got to go out and say, okay, I go to a church. What church do you go to? I go to the church of what? It's the church of all, church of us, church of love. It's just the church of. It's so big, it's defined and being defining. It's so massive, it's the experimental prototype church of tomorrow. And I go once a week, and sometimes I go on the treadmill, or sometimes I sit down with my coffee, or sometimes I go with some friends, and they teach me about a bigger view of God. And then what do they want from me? Well, they don't want me to sing, they don't want me to ush, they don't want me to greet, they don't want me to do this. They want me to go find somebody in the world, find a volunteer organization to build something, give something, feed something, or just go out and be a person who's taking love and say, well, I got tithes, offerings, building funds, alms. I want you to take all that, and take all that energy, and take all that prayer, and take all that time, and take all that serving, and all the dressing up, and all the traveling to church, and all the traveling home, and all the cleaning up, and all the ushers, and the 2 hours of praise and worship. I want you to take all those hours that we spend in church, and I want you to spend them in this church. Well, the church is in your house. How do I do? No. The church is out where you are 7 days a week, being Jesus, an embodiment. And what does Acts 10:38 said Jesus did? He went about everywhere with the Spirit of God's power on him, doing good and healing all who were harassed by the power of darkness. This is our church. And I thank you for being a part of it. Peace, health, protection, preservation, soundness, abundance. God, I pray comfort. So many of us are shaken. I pray for President Trump. I pray for his family. I pray for all who are close to him. I pray for the campaign. I pray for all for whom fear has erupted as a possibility, things that we were just not even thinking about, and now all of a sudden it's there. And I pray that that we center ourselves. This is not who we want to be. I pray for President Biden and his family, all those connected. I pray for the convention. God, just have mercy. No violence, no violence and counter-violence showing up at these conventions. God, it's not who we want to be. Let the extreme nonviolence of the not yet world come into our world, and we want to be agents of that. We want to be carriers of that, God. But just comfort our hearts, God. This is traumatic, and it's ugly, and it's of the chaos of this age. Your grace and peace on every family. Lord, I thank you that angels guard us. Our lives are redeemed from destruction. You load us with benefits every day. God, you forgive us because you see that we come from generational chaos. You heal us. We walk free from all the chaos of the garden and the law. You redeem our lives from destruction. You surround us with loving kindness and tender mercies. You satisfy our mouths with goods that our youth is renewed like the eagles, not because there was a price paid to calm you down, but because simply you are good. We receive it because of goodness, not because of exchange. Let it be upon us. Peace on each one. And God, may they know how much Connie and I love them. They're not alone. How much you love them. I bless them. I bless you for them, Lord. In Jesus' name. Listen, I talked a little long. Well, we had a little time at the beginning. But make it a great week. And love somebody today, every day. God, how can I prevent, ease, eliminate, comfort people who are hurting, injustice? How can I be love in the world? 7 days a week, the church of. That's us. God bless you. Peace on you. In Jesus' name.